So this is a demonstration of how we apply the external or additional funds needed approach. Remember, this is a forecasting exercise that will help you determine how much funds you need to raise in order to fund a specific growth target. We start with the sixth sheet in the template that you use to, or you will use to generate your first assignment. And I want you to note the following. We have 2017 actual information, which is the information that comes from the financial statements for a company, right? These are known numbers. Then in light green, you'll see a 2018 forecast column. So what you're really observing is basically for all of these items in the balance sheet and some projections as far as the revenue growth expected. So some of these also affect the income statement. You'll have a series of assumptions that we're making about how 2018 looks like. So this is an exercise where basically you are in 2017 and you're trying to forecast the end of 2018. All right, and you want to know based on your expected growth. In this case, the revenue growth is expected to be 8% for 2018. What does that imply about how much funds you need? Okay, so you have a series of assumptions. The most dramatic one is the one that shows the payables period. This company was paying in 95 days. Now the question you're asking yourself is, well, if this company attempts to make use of early payment discounts, if this company wants to get those discounts, it will have to pay in 10 days because its early payment discount requires that it pay in 10 days or less. What does that mean as far as the funding needs for this company? Okay, so this is one assumption that dramatically changes from one year to the other. The rest, some of them are shortened, some of them remain the same. Okay, and in some cases, such as the current tax, deferred taxes, and so on, we assume that they remain constant. Obviously, these things can be much more elaborate in the sense that, knowing your company, you can fine-tune these items. But the point is not so much to concentrate on how we can forecast, current or deferred taxes, but actually, once you know this information, because you know a lot about your own company, how does that help you define and obtain the funding needs for your company, given again your growth targets, right? So we're going to simplify some things, and we'll see how things go. So the first thing is just to start with the income statement. Remember, the first step was to forecast the income statement, and there's a reason for that. And I'll show you this in 1 second. So we start with the revenue, right? In 2018, the revenue is going to be whatever the revenue was before plus the growth target, right? So you're going to equal sign. Just do this. So equal sign, just take the previous revenue, right, in 2017, and you're going to multiply that times 1 plus. Okay, so open parentheses, 1 plus. And what is the growth rate? You scroll up into the assumptions area, and it's very useful to have the assumptions area on top because you can just grab these assumptions and just put them in your financial statement. So grab this 8%. So you're really grabbing obtaining the cell reference, right? Why? And then close parentheses. Now, why is this useful? It's useful because once you do this, if you can start playing with the numbers and changing this to 8, 7, 6, or whatever, and then everything else would just be dynamically linked, and so you will get all of the calculations redone for you instead of having to do this manually every time. So rather than putting 8% here, just put the cell reference and make it a dynamic link. That gives you an expected revenue of 3,414,000. Same thing for cost of sales. So equal to, what is the cost of sales going to be? And be careful now, the cost of sales is assumed to be, here it is, a percentage of revenue, and is assumed to remain as it was before in 2017, which was 72%. So this is our assumption. So the cost of sales will be 72% of what? So when you click here, notice that here you have the D6, right? 72% of, so you multiply that, of whatever is your 2018 revenue, which we know is in cell D25. So I'm just going to type in D25. Okay. The reason why it's not showing, I just can't click away, is that because the width of these two cells is not enough. Let me show you what I mean. Let's remove that. This gives ourselves some more space, and this should work now. So this is going to be 0.72, 72% of what? Times, and then just click the cell. Here we go. Okay, press enter, and you get the 2,458,000. Now notice that this number is positive, which is something that we don't want, because of course these two subtract. So be careful and always worry about the sign. Okay. So here we are. This is 955. That's our gross profit. Selling and distribution costs. So you know what we're going to be doing there, right? The same thing. This is a cost, so it's going to have a negative sign. Then what is the assumption? Here we are, 4% of, so multiply times. Everything is as percentage of revenue, so percentage times the revenue in 2019. Same thing for, let's give ourselves a little bit more space here. Okay, for general administrative expenses, equal to, so negative sign, scroll up, 20% of our revenue. Okay, so general administrative expenses are assumed to be 26% of our revenue stream. That's why we're multiplying the 26% assumption that's in the cell D8 times the revenue. So your formula should look like this. Okay, D8 times D25. Okay, that gives you an operating loss of 68, right? There's a financing cost. The financing cost is, if we scroll up, financing cost is assumed to be, same as 2017, 6% of those. If you double click here, you'll see this. We're basically using the same historical information. Okay, so we're just dividing C33 by C67, right? Which is the borrowings, right? Which remain basically the same. That's exactly what we're going to do here as well. Okay, so if you're in doubt, just double click on that on the cell where the previous assumption lies, and just see what we are doing. All right. So again, let's do that. So it's equal to, and it's a minus, right? And you can have the C33, right? So it's going to be 19. For the finance cost, it's going to be the same. If you scroll up, the same as in 2017. The 6% that you see there is just simply the financing cost divided by the borrowings. The borrowings are not going to change. The short-term borrowings are not going to change. So basically, it's the same number. Okay, so we'll scroll up and just input the 1950. Okay. Other income is assumed to be constant, meaning 239,846. Okay. And please make sure you type in these numbers, because sometimes these numbers have decimals, for example, and if you just drag them, those of you who are more familiar with Excel, if you just drag them, then what will happen is that you may drag decimals, and since I'm putting these numbers manually, you and I will have slightly different numbers, and you may have like $1 off, and you'll be wondering why is that. So let's just make sure that we just type in the same values. Income tax recovery is assumed to be null for the coming year. Other comprehensive income, as again, are null. So we have 169,613. Okay, that's on the income side, right? So this is the income, and what we're going to assume is that income amount, those earnings, are going to be retained. So this is why we forecasted the income statement first, because this way we can just retain those earnings, and they'll go in as additional equity when we forecast the balance sheet. All right, so property, plant, and equipment. Again, let's scroll up and notice that this is 42% of revenue, right? So the way we will do this is to just equal 42% of revenue. So that click on that cell and multiply that times the cell that contains the revenue. So this is the way the formula should look like. You just have equal sign, the D13 that has the percentage assumption, and D25, which is the actual revenue number. Okay, and that should give us this value. Okay, if you don't want the decimals, which we usually do not need at this point, you just click on this button here to reduce them. Okay, intangible assets. Okay, and as always, we go back because this is the area where we actually have all of the assumptions here, right? Intangible assets are assumed constant, so we can just simply type in the 402, 814.